Part 12, Finance, Property, Contracts and Suits, Chapter I, Finance, General 264 to 267, Distribution of Revenues between the Union and States 268 to 281, Miscellaneous Financial Provisions 282 to 291, Chapter II, Borrowing 292 and 293, Chapter III, Property, Contracts, Rights, Liabilities, Obligations and Suits 294 to 300, Chapter IV, Right to Property, 300A, Part C I Finance, Property, Contracts and Suits, Chapter I, Finance, General, 264, Interpretation, 265, Taxes not to be imposed save by authority of law, 266, Consolidated Funds and Public Accounts of India and of the States, 267, Contingency Fund, Distribution of Revenues between the Union and the States, 268, Duties levied by the Union but collected and appropriated by the States, 268A, Service tax levied by Union and collected and appropriated by the Union and the States, 269, Taxes levied and collected by the Union but assigned to the States, 270, Taxes levied and distributed between the Union and the States, 271, Surcharge on certain duties and taxes for purposes of the Union, 272, repealed, 273, Grants in lieu of export duty on jute and jute products, 274, Prior recommendation of President required to bills affecting taxation in which states are interested, 275, Grants from the Union to certain states, 276, Taxes on professions, trades, callings and employments, 277, Savings 278, repealed, 279, Calculation of net proceeds, etc., 280, Finance Commission, 281, Recommendations of the Finance Commission, Miscellaneous Financial Provisions, 282, Expenditure defrayable by the Union or a state out of its revenues, 283, Custody, etc., of consolidated funds, contingency funds and monies credited to the public accounts, 284, Custody of suitors' deposits and other monies received by public servants and courts, 285, Exemption of property of the Union from state taxation, 286, Restrictions as to imposition of tax on the sale or purchase of goods, 287, Exemption from taxes on electricity, 288, Exemption from taxation by states in respect of water or electricity in certain cases, 289, Exemption of property and income of a state from Union taxation, 290, Adjustment in respect of certain expenses and pensions, 290A, Annual payment to certain devaswm funds, 291, repealed. Chapter II, Borrowing, 292, Borrowing by the Government of India, 293, Borrowing by States, Chapter III, Property, Contracts, Rights, Liabilities, Obligations and Suits, 294, Succession to property, assets, rights, liabilities and obligations in certain cases, 295, Succession to property, assets, rights, liabilities and obligations in other cases, 296, Property accruing by escheat or lapse or as bonaventure, 297, Things of value within territorial waters or continental shelf and resources of the exclusive economic zone to vest in the Union, 298, Power to carry on trade, etc., 299, Contracts, 300, Suits and Proceedings, Chapter IV, Right to Property, 300A, Persons not to be deprived of property save by authority of law, Part C I Finance, Property, Contracts and Suits Chapter I, Finance General, 1, 264, Interpretation, in this part, Finance Commission means a Finance Commission constituted under Article 280, 265, Taxes not to be imposed save by authority of law, no tax shall be levied or collected except by authority of law, 266, Consolidated Funds and Public Accounts of India and of the States, 1, subject to the provisions of Article 267 and to the provisions of this chapter with respect to the assignment of a whole or part of the net proceeds of certain taxes and duties to states, all revenues received by the Government of India, all loans raised by that government by the issue of treasury bills, loans or ways and means advances, and all moneys received by that government in repayment of loans shall form one consolidated fund to be entitled the Consolidated Fund of India, and all revenues received by the government of a state, all loans raised by that government by the issue of treasury bills, loans or ways and means advances, and all moneys received by that government in repayment of loans shall form one consolidated fund to be entitled the Consolidated Fund of the State. 2. All other public moneys received by or on behalf of the Government of India or the Government of a state shall be credited to the public account of India or the public account of the state, as the case may be. 3. No moneys out of the Consolidated Fund of India or the Consolidated Fund of a state shall be appropriated except in accordance with law and for the purposes and in the manner provided in this Constitution. 267. Contingency Fund. 1. Parliament may by law establish a contingency fund in the nature of an imprest to be entitled the Contingency Fund of India, into which shall be paid from time to time such sums as may be determined by such law, and the said fund shall be placed at the disposal of the President to enable advances to be made by him out of such fund for the purposes of meeting unforeseen expenditure pending authorization of such expenditure by Parliament by law under Article 115 or Article 116. 2. The legislature of a state may by law establish a contingency fund in the nature of an imprest to be entitled the Contingency Fund of the State, into which shall be paid from time to time such sums as may be determined by such law, and the said fund shall be placed at the disposal of the Governor, 2. of the state to enable advances to be made by him out of such fund for the purposes of meeting unforeseen expenditure pending authorization of such expenditure by the legislature of the state by law under Article 205 or Article 206. Distribution of revenues between the Union and the states. 268. Duties levied by the Union but collected and appropriated by the states. 1. Such stamp duties, 3, as are mentioned in the Union list, shall be levied by the Government of India but shall be collected, a. in the case where such duties are leviable within any 4. Union territory, by the Government of India, and b. in other cases, by the states within which such duties are respectively leviable. 2. The proceeds in any financial year of any such duty leviable within any state shall not form part of the Consolidated Fund of India, but shall be assigned to that state. 3268a. Service tax levied by Union and collected and appropriated by the Union and the state, omitted by the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016, as 7, WEF, the 16th of September 2016. 269. Taxes levied and collected by the Union but assigned to the states. 5. 1. Taxes on the sale or purchase of goods and taxes on the consignment of goods. 6. Except as provided in Article 269a, shall be levied and collected by the Government of India but shall be assigned and shall be deemed to have been assigned to the states on or after the 1st day of April, 1996 in the manner provided in Clause 2. Explanation. For the purposes of this clause, a. The expression taxes on the sale or purchase of goods shall mean taxes on sale or purchase of goods other than newspapers, where such sale or purchase takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. b. The expression taxes on the consignment of goods shall mean taxes on the consignment of goods, whether the consignment is to the person making it or to any other person, where such consignment takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. 2. The net proceeds in any financial year of any such tax, except in so far as those proceeds represent proceeds attributable to Union territories, shall not form part of the Consolidated Fund of India, but shall be assigned to the states within which the tax is leviable in that year, and shall be distributed among those states in accordance with such principles of distribution as may be formulated by Parliament by law. 7. 3. Parliament may by law formulate principles for determining when a 8. Sale or purchase of, or consignment of, goods, takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. 9. 269a. Levy and collection of goods and services tax in course of interstate trade or commerce. 1. Goods and services tax on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce shall be levied and collected by the Government of India, and such tax shall be apportioned between the Union and the states in the manner as may be provided by Parliament by law on the recommendations of the Goods and Services Tax Council. Explanation. For the purposes of this clause, supply of goods, or of services, or both in the course of import into the territory of India shall be deemed to be supply of goods, or of services, or both in the course of interstate trade or commerce. 2. The amount apportioned to a state under clause 1 shall not form part of the consolidated fund of India. 3. Where an amount collected as tax levied under clause 1 has been used for payment of the tax levied by a state under Article 246A, such amount shall not form part of the consolidated fund of India. 4. Where an amount collected as tax levied by a state under Article 246A has been used for payment of the tax levied under clause 1, such amount shall not form part of the consolidated fund of the state. 5. Parliament may, by law, formulate the principles for determining the place of supply, and when a supply of goods, or of services, or both takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. 10. 270. Taxes levied and distributed between the Union and the States. 1. All taxes and duties referred to in the Union list, except for duties and taxes referred to in Articles 11, 268, 269 and 269A, respectively. Surcharge on taxes and duties referred to in Article 271 and any cess levied for specific purposes under any law made by Parliament shall be levied and collected by the Government of India and shall be distributed between the Union and the States, in the manner provided in Clause 2, 3, 12a, the tax collected by the Union under Clause 1 of Article 246A shall also be distributed between the Union and the States in the manner provided in Clause 2, 13. B. The tax levied and collected by the Union under Clause 2 of Article 246A and Article 269A, which has been used for payment of the tax levied by the Union under Clause 1 of Article 246A, and the amount apportioned to the Union under Clause 1 of Article 269A, shall also be distributed between the Union and the States in the manner provided in Clause 2. 2. Such percentage, as may be prescribed, of the net proceeds of any such tax or duty in any financial year shall not form part of the consolidated fund of India, but shall be assigned to the states within which the tax or duty is leviable in that year, and shall be distributed among those states in such manner and from such time as may be prescribed in the manner provided in Clause 3. 3. In this article, prescribed means, I, until a finance commission has been constituted, prescribed by the President by order, and, I, after a finance commission has been constituted, prescribed by the President by order after considering the recommendations of the Finance Commission. 271. Surcharge on certain duties and taxes for purposes of the Union, notwithstanding anything in Articles 269 and 270. Parliament may at any time increase any of the duties or taxes referred to in those articles. 14. Except the goods and services tax under Article 246A, by a surcharge for purposes of the Union, and the whole proceeds of any such surcharge shall form part of the consolidated fund of India. 272. Taxes which are levied and collected by the Union and may be distributed between the Union and the States are permitted by the Constitution, 80th Amendment, Act, 2000, as 4, WEF, the 9th of June 2000. 273. Grants in lieu of export duty on jute and jute products. 1. They shall be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and each year as grants in aid of the revenues of the states of Assam, Bihar, 15, Odisha, and West Bengal, in lieu of assignment of any share of the net proceeds in each year of export duty on jute and jute products to those states, such sums as may be prescribed. 2. The sums so prescribed shall continue to be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India so long as any export duty on jute or jute products continues to be levied by the Government of India, or until the expiration of 10 years from the commencement of this Constitution, whichever is earlier. 3. In this article, the expression prescribed has the same meaning as in Article 270. 274. Prior recommendation of President required to bills affecting taxation in which states are interested. 1. No bill or amendment which imposes or varies any tax or duty in which states are interested, or which varies the meaning of the expression agricultural income as defined for the purposes of the enactments relating to Indian income tax, or which affects the principles on which under any of the foregoing provisions of this chapter monies are or may be distributable to states, or which imposes any such surcharge for the purposes of the Union as is mentioned in the foregoing provisions of this chapter, shall be introduced or moved in either House of Parliament except on the recommendation of the President. 2. In this article, the expression tax or duty in which states are interested means, a tax or duty the whole or part of the net proceeds whereof are assigned to any state, or, b. a tax or duty by reference to the net proceeds whereof sums are for the time being payable out of the Consolidated Fund of India to any state. 275. Grants from the Union to certain states. 1. Such sums as Parliament may by law provide shall be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and each year are as grants in aid of the revenues of such states as Parliament may determine to be in need of assistance, and different sums may be fixed for different states, provided that there shall be paid out of the Consolidated Fund of India as grants in aid of the revenues of a state such capital and recurring sums as may be necessary to enable that state to meet the costs of such schemes of development as may be undertaken by the state with the approval of the Government of India for the purpose of promoting the welfare of the scheduled tribes in that state or raising the level of administration of the scheduled areas therein to that of the administration of the rest of the areas of that state, provided further that there shall be paid out of the Consolidated Fund of India as grants in aid of the revenues of the state of Assam sums, capital and recurring, equivalent to the average excessive expenditure over the revenues during the 2 years immediately preceding the commencement of this constitution in respect of the administration of the tribal areas specified in 16, Part 1, of the table appended to paragraph 20 of the 6th schedule, and b. the costs of such schemes of development as may be undertaken by that state with the approval of the Government of India for the purpose of raising the level of administration of the said areas to that of the administration of the rest of the areas of that state. 17. 1a. On and from the formation of the autonomous state under Article 244a, I, any sums payable under Clause a of the second proviso to Clause 1, shall, if the autonomous state comprises all the tribal areas referred to therein, be paid to the autonomous state, and, if the autonomous state comprises only some of those tribal areas, be apportioned between the state of Assam and the autonomous state as the President may, by order, specify, II. They shall be paid out of the Consolidated Fund of India as grants in aid of the revenues of the autonomous state sums, capital and recurring, equivalent to the costs of such schemes of development as may be undertaken by the autonomous state with the approval of the Government of India for the purpose of raising the level of administration of that state to that of the administration of the rest of the state of Assam. 2. Until provision is made by Parliament under Clause 1, the powers conferred on Parliament under that clause shall be exercisable by the President by order, and any order made by the President under this clause shall have effect subject to any provision so made by Parliament, provided that after a Finance Commission has been constituted no order shall be made under this clause by the President except after considering the recommendations of the Finance Commission. 276. Taxes on professions, trades, callings and employments. 1. Notwithstanding anything in Article 246, no law of the legislature of a state relating to taxes for the benefit of the state or of a municipality, district board, local board or other local authority therein in respect of professions, trades, callings or employments shall be invalid on the ground that it relates to a tax on income. 2. The total amount payable in respect of any one person to the state or to any one municipality, district board, local board or other local authority in the state by way of taxes on professions, trades, callings and employments shall not exceed 2,500 rupees per annum. 19. 3. The power of the legislature of a state to make laws as aforesaid with respect to taxes on professions, trades, callings and employments shall not be construed as limiting in any way the power of Parliament to make laws with respect to taxes on income accruing from or arising out of professions, trades, callings and employments. 277. Savings, any taxes, duties, cesses or fees which, immediately before the commencement of this Constitution, were being lawfully levied by the government of any state or by any municipality or other local authority or body for the purposes of the state, municipality, district or other local area may, notwithstanding that those taxes, duties, cesses or fees are mentioned in the Union list, continue to be levied and to be applied to the same purposes until provision to the contrary is made by Parliament by law. 278. agreement with states in Part to be of the first schedule with regard to certain financial matters, omitted by the Constitution, 7th Amendment, Act, 1956, S29 and SCH, WEF, the 1st of November 1956, 279. Calculation of net proceeds, etc. 1. In the foregoing provisions of this chapter, net proceeds means in relation to any tax or duty the proceeds thereof reduced by the cost of collection, and for the purposes of those provisions the net proceeds of any tax or duty, or of any part of any tax or duty, in or attributable to any area shall be ascertained and certified by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, whose certificate shall be final. 2. Subject as aforesaid, and to any other express provision of this chapter, a law made by Parliament or an order of the President may, in any case where under this part the proceeds of any duty or tax are, or may be, assigned to any state, provide for the manner in which the proceeds are to be calculated, for the time from or at which and the manner in which any payments are to be made, for the making of adjustments between one financial year and another, and for any other incidental or ancillary matters. 20. 279a. Goods and Services Tax Council. 1. The President shall, within 60 days from the date of commencement of the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016, by order, constitute a council to be called the Goods and Services Tax Council. 2. The Goods and Services Tax Council shall consist of the following members, namely, a. The Union Finance Minister, Chairperson, b. The Union Minister of State in charge of Revenue or Finance, member, c. The Minister in charge of Finance or Taxation or any other minister nominated by each state government, members. 3. The members of the Goods and Services Tax Council referred to in subclause c. of clause 2, shall, as soon as may be, choose one amongst themselves to be the vice chairperson of the council for such period as they may decide. 4. The Goods and Services Tax Council shall make recommendations to the Union and the states on a. The taxes, cesses and surcharges levied by the Union, the states and the local bodies which may be subsumed in the Goods and Services Tax, b. The goods and services that may be subjected to, or exempted from the Goods and Services Tax, c. Model Goods and Services Tax laws, principles of levy, apportionment of goods and services tax levied on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce under Article 269a and the principles that govern the place of supply, d. The threshold limit of turnover below which goods and services may be exempted from Goods and Services Tax, e. The rates including floor rates with bands of Goods and Services Tax, f. Any special rate or rates for a specified period, to raise additional resources during any natural calamity or disaster, g. Special provision with respect to the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand, and h. Any other matter relating to the Goods and Services Tax, as the Council may decide. 5. The Goods and Services Tax Council shall recommend the date on which the Goods and Services Tax be levied on petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, natural gas and aviation turbine fuel. 6. While discharging the functions conferred by this article, the Goods and Services Tax Council shall be guided by the need for a harmonized structure of goods and services tax and for the development of a harmonized national market for goods and services. 7. 1/2 of the total number of members of the Goods and Services Tax Council shall constitute the quorum at its meetings. 8. The Goods and Services Tax Council shall determine the procedure in the performance of its functions. 9. Every decision of the Goods and Services Tax Council shall be taken at a meeting, by a majority of not less than 3/4 of the weighted votes of the members present and voting, in accordance with the following principles, namely, the vote of the central government shall have a weightage of 1/3 of the total votes cast, and, b. The votes of all the state governments taken together shall have a weightage of 2/3 of the total votes cast, in that meeting. 10. No act or proceedings of the Goods and Services Tax Council shall be invalid merely by reason of a. Any vacancy in, or any defect in, the constitution of the Council, or b. Any defect in the appointment of a person as a member of the Council, or c. Any procedural irregularity of the Council not affecting the merits of the case. 11. The Goods and Services Tax Council shall establish a mechanism to adjudicate any dispute, a. between the Government of India and one or more states, or b. between the Government of India and any state or states on one side and one or more other states on the other side, or c. between two or more states, arising out of the recommendations of the Council or implementation thereof. 280. Finance Commission. 1. The President shall, within 2 years from the commencement of this Constitution and thereafter at the expiration of every 5th year or at such earlier time as the President considers necessary, by order constitute a Finance Commission which shall consist of a chairman and 4 other members to be appointed by the President. 2. Parliament may by law determine the qualifications which shall be requisite for appointment as members of the Commission and the manner in which they shall be selected. 3. It shall be the duty of the Commission to make recommendations to the President as to the distribution between the Union and the States of the net proceeds of taxes which are to be, or may be, divided between them under this chapter and the allocation between the States of the respective shares of such proceeds. b. The principles which should govern the grants in aid of the revenues of the States out of the Consolidated Fund of India. 21. bb. The measures needed to augment the Consolidated Fund of a State to supplement the resources of the panchayats in the State on the basis of the recommendations made by the Finance Commission of the State. 22. c. The measures needed to augment the Consolidated Fund of a State to supplement the resources of the municipalities in the State on the basis of the recommendations made by the Finance Commission of the State. 23. d. Any other matter referred to the Commission by the President in the interests of sound finance. 4. The Commission shall determine their procedure and shall have such powers in the performance of their functions as Parliament may by law confer on them. 281. Recommendations of the Finance Commission. The President shall cause every recommendation made by the Finance Commission under the provisions of this Constitution together with an explanatory memorandum as to the action taken thereon to be laid before each House of Parliament. Miscellaneous Financial Provisions. 282. Expenditure defrayable by the Union or a State out of its revenues. The Union or a State may make any grants for any public purpose, notwithstanding that the purpose is not one with respect to which Parliament or the legislature of the State, as the case may be, may make laws. 283. Custody, etc., of consolidated funds, contingency funds and monies credited to the public accounts. 1. The custody of the Consolidated Fund of India and the Contingency Fund of India, the payment of monies into such funds, the withdrawal of monies therefrom, the custody of public monies other than those credited to such funds received by or on behalf of the Government of India, their payment into the public account of India and the withdrawal of monies from such all other matters connected with or ancillary to matters aforesaid shall be regulated by law made by Parliament, and, until provision in that behalf is so made, shall be regulated by rules made by the President. 2. The custody of the Consolidated Fund of a State and the Contingency Fund of a State, the payment of monies into such funds, the withdrawal of monies therefrom, the custody of public monies other than those credited to such funds received by or on behalf of the Government of the State, their payment into the public account of the State and the withdrawal of monies from such account and all other matters connected with or ancillary to matters aforesaid shall be regulated by law made by the legislature of the State, and, until provision in that behalf is so made, shall be regulated by rules made by the Governor. 24. Of the State. 284. Custody of suitors' deposits and other monies received by public servants and courts, all monies received by or deposited with any officer employed in connection with the affairs of the Union or of a State in his capacity as such, other than revenues or public monies raised or received by the Government of India or the Government of the State, as the case may be, or b. Any court within the territory of India to the credit of any cause, matter, account or persons, shall be paid into the public account of India or the public account of State, as the case may be. 285. Exemption of property of the Union from State taxation. 1. The property of the Union shall, save in so far as Parliament may by law otherwise provide, be exempt from all taxes imposed by a State or by any authority within a State. 2. Nothing in clause 1 shall, until Parliament by law otherwise provides, prevent any authority within a State from levying any tax on any property of the Union to which such property was immediately before the commencement of this Constitution liable or treated as liable, so long as the tax continues to be levied in that State. 286. Restrictions as to imposition of tax on the sale or purchase of goods. 1. No law of a State shall impose, or authorize the imposition of, a tax on. 25. The supply of goods or of services or both, where such supply takes place, a. outside the State, or b. in the course of the import of the 3. goods or services or both, into, or export of the, 26, goods or services or both, out of, the territory of India. 27, 28, 2. Parliament may by law formulate principles for determining when a, 29, supply of goods or of services or both, in any of the ways mentioned in Clause 1, 30, 287, exemption from taxes on electricity, save in so far as Parliament may by law otherwise provide, no law of a state shall impose, or authorize the imposition of, a tax on the consumption or sale of electricity, whether produced by a government or other persons, which is, a. consumed by the Government of India, or sold to the Government of India for consumption by that government, or, b. consumed in the construction, maintenance or operation of any railway by the Government of India or a railway company operating that railway, or sold to that government or any such railway company for consumption in the construction, maintenance or operation of any railway, and any such law imposing, or authorizing the imposition of, a tax on the sale of electricity shall secure that the price of electricity sold to the Government of India for consumption by that government, or to any such railway company as aforesaid for consumption in the construction, maintenance or operation of any railway, shall be less by the amount of the tax than the price charged to other consumers of a substantial quantity of electricity. 288. Exemption from taxation by states in respect of water or electricity in certain cases. 1. Save in so far as the President may by order otherwise provide, no law of a state in force immediately before the commencement of this Constitution shall impose, or authorize the imposition of, a tax in respect of any water or electricity stored, generated, consumed, distributed or sold by any authority established by any existing law or any law made by Parliament for regulating or developing any inter-state river or river valley. Explanation. The expression law of a state in force in this clause shall include a law of a state passed or made before the commencement of this Constitution and not previously repealed, notwithstanding that it or part of it may not be then in operation either at all or in particular areas. 2. The legislature of a state may by law impose, or authorize the imposition of, any such tax as is mentioned in Clause 1, but no such law shall have any effect unless it has, after having been reserved for the consideration of the President, received his assent, and if any such law provides for the fixation of the rates and other incidents of such tax by means of rules or orders to be made under the law by any authority, the law shall provide for the previous consent of the President being obtained to the making of any such rule or order. 289. Exemption of property and income of a state from union taxation. 1. The property and income of a state shall be exempt from union taxation. 2. Nothing in Clause 1 shall prevent the Union from imposing, or authorizing the imposition of, any tax to such extent, if any, as Parliament may by law provide in respect of a trade or business of any kind carried on by, or on behalf of, the government of a state, or any operations connected therewith, or any property used or occupied for the purposes of such trade or business, or any income accruing or arising in connection therewith. 3. Nothing in Clause 2 shall apply to any trade or business, or to any class of trade or business, which Parliament may by law declare to be incidental to the ordinary functions of government. 290. Adjustment in respect of certain expenses and pensions, where under the provisions of this Constitution the expenses of any court or commission, or the pension payable to or in respect of a person who has served before the commencement of this Constitution under the Crown in India or after such commencement in connection with the affairs of the Union or of a state, are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India or the Consolidated Fund of a state, then, if, in the case of a charge on the Consolidated Fund of India, the court or commission serves any of the separate needs of a state, or the person is served wholly or in part in connection with the affairs of a state, or, b. in the case of a charge on the Consolidated Fund of a state, the court or commission serves any of the separate needs of the Union or another state, or the person is served wholly or in part in connection with the affairs of the Union or another state, they shall be charged on and paid out of the Consolidated Fund of the state or, as the case may be, the Consolidated Fund of India or the Consolidated Fund of the other state, such contribution in respect of the expenses or pension as may be agreed, or as may in default of agreement be determined by an arbitrator to be appointed by the Chief Justice of India. 31. 290a. Annual payment to certain Devaswam funds, a sum of 46,50,000 rupees shall be charged on, and paid out of, the consolidated fund of the state of Kerala every year to the Travancore Devaswam Fund, and a sum of 13,50,000 rupees shall be charged on, and paid out of, the consolidated fund of the state of 32, Tamil Nadu, every year to the Devaswam Fund established in that state for the maintenance of Hindu temples and shrines in the territories transferred to that state on the 1st day of November, 1956, from the state of Travancore Cochin. 291. Privy purse sums of rulers data omitted by the Constitution, 26th Amendment, Act, 1971, as 2, WEF, the 28th of December 1971. Chapter II, Borrowing 292. Borrowing by the Government of India. The executive power of the Union extends to borrowing upon the security of the Consolidated Fund of India within such limits, if any, as may from time to time be fixed by Parliament by law, and to the giving of guarantees within such limits, if any, as may be so fixed. 293. Borrowing by states. 1. Subject to the provisions of this article, the executive power of a state extends to borrowing within the territory of India upon the security of the consolidated fund of the state within such limits, if any, as may from time to time be fixed by the legislature of such state by law, and to the giving of guarantees within such limits, if any, as may be so fixed. 2. The Government of India may, subject to such conditions as may be laid down by or under any law made by Parliament, make loans to any state or, so long as any limits fixed under Article 292 are not exceeded, give guarantees in respect of loans raised by any state, and any sums required for the purpose of making such loans shall be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. 3. A state may not without the consent of the Government of India raise any loan if there is still outstanding any part of a loan which has been made to the state by the Government of India or by its predecessor government, or in respect of which a guarantee has been given by the Government of India or by its predecessor government. 4. A consent under Clause 3 may be granted subject to such conditions, if any, as the Government of India may think fit to impose. Chapter III, Property, Contracts, Rights, Liabilities, Obligations and Suits. 294. Succession to property, assets, rights, liabilities and obligations in certain cases, as from the commencement of this Constitution, all property and assets which immediately before such commencement were vested in His Majesty for the purposes of the government of the Dominion of India, and all property and assets which immediately before such commencement were vested in His Majesty for the purposes of the government of each governor's province shall vest respectively in the Union and the corresponding state, and b. all rights, liabilities and obligations of the government of the Dominion of India and of the government of each governor's province, whether arising out of any contract or otherwise, shall be the rights, liabilities and obligations respectively of the government of India and the government of each corresponding state, subject to any adjustment made or to be made by reason of the creation before the commencement of this Constitution of the Dominion of Pakistan or of the provinces of West Bengal, East Bengal, West Punjab and East Punjab. 295. Succession to property, assets, rights, liabilities and obligations in other cases. 1. As from the commencement of this Constitution, all property and assets which immediately before such commencement were vested in any Indian state corresponding to a state specified in Part to be of the first schedule shall vest in the Union, if the purposes for which such property and assets were held immediately before such commencement will thereafter be purposes of the Union relating to any of the matters enumerated in the Union list, and b. all rights, liabilities and obligations of the government of any Indian state corresponding to a state specified in Part to be of the first schedule, whether arising out of any contract or otherwise, shall be the rights, liabilities and obligations of the government of India, if the purposes for which such rights were acquired or liabilities or obligations were incurred before such commencement will thereafter be purposes of the government of India relating to any of the matters enumerated in the Union list, subject to any agreement entered into in that behalf by the government of India with the government of that state. 2. Subject as aforesaid, the government of each state specified in Part to be of the first schedule shall, as from the commencement of this Constitution, be the successor of the government of the corresponding Indian state as regards all property and assets and all rights, liabilities and obligations, whether arising out of any contract or otherwise, other than those referred to in Clause 1, 296, property accruing by escheat or lapse or as bonaventure, subject as hereinafter provided, any property in the territory of India which, if this Constitution had not come into operation, would have accrued to His Majesty or, as the case may be, to the ruler of an Indian state by escheat or lapse, or as bonaventure for want of a rightful owner, shall, if it is property situate in a state, vest in such state, and shall, in any other case, vest in the Union, provided that any property which at the date when it would have so accrued to His Majesty or to the ruler of an Indian state was in the possession or under the control of the government of India or the government of a state shall, according as the purposes for which it was then used or held were purposes of the Union or of a state, vest in the Union or in that state. Explanation: in this article, the expressions ruler and Indian state have the same meanings as in Article 363, 33, 297, things of value within territorial waters or continental shelf and resources of the exclusive economic zone to vest in the Union. 1. All lands, minerals and other things of value underlying the ocean within the territorial waters, or the continental shelf, or the exclusive economic zone, of India shall vest in the Union and be held for the purposes of the Union. 2. All other resources of the exclusive economic zone of India shall also vest in the Union and be held for the purposes of the Union. 3. The limits of the territorial waters, the continental shelf, the exclusive economic zone, and other maritime zones, of India shall be such as may be specified, from time to time, by or under any law made by Parliament. 34, 298. Power to carry on trade, etc. The executive power of the Union and of each state shall extend to the carrying on of any trade or business and to the acquisition, holding and disposal of property and the making of contracts for any purpose, provided that, the said executive power of the Union shall, in so far as such trade or business or such purpose is not one with respect to which Parliament may make laws, be subject in each state to legislation by the state, and, b. the said executive power of each state shall, in so far as such trade or business or such purpose is not one with respect to which the state legislature may make laws, be subject to legislation by Parliament. 299. Contracts. 1. All contracts made in the exercise of the executive power of the Union or of a state shall be expressed to be made by the President, or by the Governor one of the state, as the case may be, and all such contracts and all assurances of property made in the exercise of that power shall be executed on behalf of the President or the Governor. 35. By such persons and in such manner as he may direct or authorize. 2. Neither the President nor the Governor. 36. Shall be personally liable in respect of any contract or assurance made or executed for the purposes of this Constitution, or for the purposes of any enactment relating to the Government of India heretofore in force, nor shall any person making or executing any such contract or assurance on behalf of any of them be personally liable in respect thereof. 300. Suits and proceedings. 1. The Government of India may sue or be sued by the name of the Union of India, and the Government of a state may sue or be sued by the name of the state and may, subject to any provisions which may be made by Act of Parliament or of the legislature of such state enacted by virtue of powers conferred by this Constitution, sue or be sued in relation to their respective affairs in the like cases as the Dominion of India and the corresponding provinces or the corresponding Indian states might have sued or been sued if this Constitution had not been enacted. 2. If at the commencement of this Constitution, any legal proceedings are pending to which the Dominion of India is a party, the Union of India shall be deemed to be substituted for the Dominion in those proceedings, and, b. any legal proceedings are pending to which a province or an Indian state is a party, the corresponding state shall be deemed to be substituted for the province or the Indian state in those proceedings. 37. Chapter IV, Right to Property. 300a. Persons not to be deprived of property save by authority of law. No person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law. 1. Subsist by the Constitution, 7th Amendment, Act, 1956, as 29 and SCH, WEF, the 1st of November 1956. 2. The words or Rajpam are committed by IBID. 3. At 268a was ins by the Constitution, 88th Amendment, Act, 2003, as 2, not enforced. 4. Subsist by the Constitution, 7th Amendment, Act, 1956, as 29 and SCH, for states specified in Part C of the First Schedule, WEF, the 1st of November 1956. 5. Subsist by the Constitution, 80th Amendment, Act, 2000, as 2, for CLS, 1, and 2, WEF, the 9th of June 2000. 6. Ins by the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016 S8, WEF, the 16th of September 2016. 7. Ins by the Constitution, 6th Amendment, Act, 1956, S3, WEF, the 11th of September 1956. 8. Subs by the Constitution, 46th Amendment, Act, 1982, S2, for sale or purchase of good, WEF, the 2nd of February 1983. 9. Ins by the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016, S9, WEF, the 16th of September 2016. 10. Subs by the Constitution, 80th Amendment, Act, 2000, S3, WEF, the 9th of June 2000. 11. The words and figures in 268 and 269 substituted as 268, 268A and 269 by the Constitution, 88th Amendment, Act, 2003, S3, not enforced, and further substituted by the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016, S10, WEF, the 16th of September 2016. 12. Subs by the Constitution, 80th Amendment, Act, 2000, S3, WEF, the 9th of June 2000. 13. Subs by the Constitution, 80th Amendment, Act, 2000, S3, WEF, the 9th of June 2000. 14. Ins by the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016, S11, WEF, the 16th of September 2016. 15. Subs by ERISA, Alteration of Name, Act, 2011, 15 of 2011, S5, for ERISA, WEF, the 1st of November 2011. 16. Subs by the Northeastern Areas, Reorganization, Act, 1971, 81 of 1971, S71, for Part A, WEF, the 21st of January 1972. 17. Ins by the Constitution, 22nd Amendment, Act, 1969, S3, WEF, the 25th of September 1969. 18. Subs by the Constitution, 60th Amendment, Act, 1988, S2, for 250 rupees, WEF, the 20th of December 1988. 19. Proviso omitted by IBID. 20. Ins by the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016, S12, WEF, the 12th of September 2016. 21. Ins by the Constitution, 73rd Amendment, Act, 1992, S3, WEF, the 24th of April 1993. 22. Ins by the Constitution, 74th Amendment, Act, 1992, S3, WEF, the 1st of June 1993. 23. Subclause, C, related as subclause, D, by IBID. 24. The words or ajpam are committed by the Constitution, 7th Amendment, Act, 1956, S29 and SCH, WEF, the 1st of November 1956. 25. Subs by the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016, S13, I, A, for the word the sale or purchase of good where such sale or purchase takes place, WEF, the 16th of September 2016. 26. 3. Subs by S13, I, B, IBID, for the words goods. 27. Explanation to CL. 1. Omitted by the Constitution, 6th Amendment, Act, 1956, S4, WEF, the 11th of September 1956. 28. Subs by IBID for CLS, 2, and 3. 29. Subs by the Constitution, 101st Amendment, Act, 2016 S13, II, for the words sale or purchase of goods takes place, WEF, the 16th of September 2016. 30. CL, 3, omitted by S13, II, IBID. 31. Ins by the Constitution, 7th Amendment, Act, 1956, S19, WEF, the 1st of November 1956. 32. Subs by the Madras State, Alteration of Name, Act, 1968, 53 of 1968, S4, for Madras, WEF, the 14th of January 1969. 33. Subs by the Constitution, 14th Amendment, Act, 1976, as 2, WEF, the 27th of May 1976, 34, subs by the Constitution, 7th Amendment, Act, 1956, as 20, WEF, the 1st of November 1956, 35, the words all the Rajpama committed by the Constitution, 7th Amendment, Act, 1956, S. 29 and SCH, WEF, the 1st of November 1956, 36, the word all the Rajpama committed by IBID,